Welcome to SF Commercial Property Conversations with Bruce Bean, where Bay Area investments meet expert insights. Get ready to unlock the strategies of commercial real estate success.
So today we have Rick Puttkammer with us from Marcus and Millichap, and Rick has gone through a very numerous different iterations of becoming a broker, being a developer, and so forth. So, Rick, it's great to have you on. I'd love to hear kind of a little history of how you got to where you are now.
Boy, and you only want to talk for 20 minutes? Okay. How'd I get here? I mean, it's a bit of a circuitous route, but it all started with brokerage. I was a finance major at San Diego State. Actually wanted to be a veterinarian. That's what took me to Ames, Iowa, but didn't work out. Drove back cross country, ended up at a little company down in San Diego called Burnham Real Estate Services. That was back in the 80s. And my mentor that took me on as a trainee was a retail brokerage specialist. So started really in retail, understanding shopping centers, grew into grocery anchored shopping centers. Along the way, learned, to do land where you would, we used to call it the full cycle, where you would find a shopping center site, you would go get a grocery store, you would get a developer, you'd put everybody together, and then you would get the land sale, and then you would get the leasing, and then with any luck, you got the investment sale of the completed project. And that was about a 3 to 4 year process. And did a few of those in San Diego, and then jumped, after 3 or 4 years, jumped over to a company called Iliff Thorn. Iliff Thorn was based in Colorado, a guy named George Iliff and George Thorn. They kind of wooed me away, and it was a startup in San Diego, and a real good group that kind of cherry picked some good brokers that I liked working with in the office. And back in those days, apartments really weren't considered commercial, as strange as that sounds. But again, this was the mid to late 80s. But anyway, ended up doing about 7 or 8 years there. We ended up selling that company to Colliers out of Canada, out of Vancouver. So we became Colliers Iliff Thorn, and ultimately became Colliers. Still doing really retail brokerage, pretty much everything from leasing to investment sales. Still working with grocery stores, trying to develop relationships, and still focused in, call it Southern California, Riverside, San Bernardino, San Diego, and Imperial counties. So kind of grew the business a little bit that way. Had a couple of partners along the way, some young guys that I kind of wanted to get involved in the business. A couple of them lasted, and a couple of them didn't. But then kind of decided that Burnham was the better fit, so went back there, and that's where I kind of started in on some of the management aspects of brokerage. So, and now I'm like 10 years, 12 years in. A guy named Dennis Cruzon ran Burnham, wanted somebody to help him on the retail division. Interesting there, we had a business plan where we were merging a property management aspect, or property management group, with brokerage, and two different thought processes. The brokers, the turn broker, just get me in, get me out, give me my commission, and the property manager is the picking up the pieces. Frankly, I mean, when the broker says, you can get we can get the TIs done in a month, and it takes you 2 months just to get through the health department. Broker's already got his commission, and the property manager's still trying to take midnight calls from the tenant who's very frustrated that his rent kicked in before he broke the door. So we thought, at that point, we thought this would be a good marriage, and we did that. We got a really sharp lady that is now at Transwestern down in Texas, down in Dallas. And she and I worked together to put this business model together. And it worked. It worked for a while. And then what happened is I got sidetracked with some development opportunities. And then the gal that ran the property management piece, my counterpart, she ended up taking a different position in another company. So, but that was a very interesting model, and it was they call it herding cats. I mean, the brokers were all over the place, and then the property managers would kind of keep them in line with hey, don't overpromise and underperform because we're the ones picking up the pieces. So that was interesting and fun. And then from there, like I mentioned earlier, we actually sold Burnham to Cushman & Wakefield. I was getting farther and farther along in out of management and into development. And interestingly enough, I was developing in Northern California because I couldn't compete with my development clients developer clients down in Southern California. So I had followed a company called Kitchell Development. Kitchell's based in Arizona. They had a very large general contracting division.
Oh, okay.
You're right. And they were big developers in Arizona, and interesting little story on this one. So we're at, as you know, International Council of Shopping Centers that on in Vegas. They've got multiple meetings, around the country and actually around the world, but mainly around the U.S. That I attend. And we're sitting in a booth with the guy from Ralph's grocery stores. And everybody's tired, and we're kind of, as you know, you get in these little booths and you have these little meetings, and everybody talks about what they're going to do and where they're looking. The tenants talk about where they're looking and if we can help them as brokers, so on and so forth. And the guy looks in the real estate representative for Ralph's goes, "Have you guys ever gone? Do you guys know much about Northern California?" And we said, we look at each other. The developer looks at me, and I look at him and go, "No, we can sure find out." Well, why do you ask? Why do you
Yes, we know everything.
Yes, we know it, absolutely. But anyway, so we that's what we did. We literally said, "No, we'll find out." He said, "Yeah, we like working with you, and if you guys can go find us some sites, that's what's in the budget for." I don't know what year this was, but that was in the budget to do some expansion up there. So we went up. We hired a research guy, very capable research guy, and he picked out sites. He ran models for us. We did demographics. We did customer counts. We did traffic count, all the things that go into finding a grocery anchored shopping center site. So we get up there and we spent about a year and thousands of dollars on the reports. We did tours. We spent hours and hours, and I got to know really the Central Valley is where they went.
Yeah.
They were more Central Valley oriented. So we got to know the Central Valley, the 99 corridor, the 5 corridor, all the east-west corridors, 580, and you name it, 290, even the 290. But anyway, we get all this done, get all these books put together. Back in the day, you had, books at Founder, all this. And we get a call from this guy, and he goes, "We decided there's too much competition in the Central Valley. We're going to unplug on this whole thing."
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm laughing.
Yeah.
I'm laughing now, but I was.
Yeah, right.
I had a different feeling back then.
For sure.
And so the developer and I looked at each other and go, "God, now what do we do?" And we said, "Well, we know the market pretty well. Why don't we start to reach out to a couple developers up there and see, or at least landowners up there. Let's see what we can do with the data." So sure enough, one of our first meetings turned out to be a group, the Spanos group. It was actually it wasn't Alex, obviously. It was Dean. No, not Dean. It was the other Dean, Alex's other son. Rob, I don't remember the name, but he says, "Yeah, we've got this this 50-acre site over here at 8 Mile Road and 5. We're talking to people right now, and you have any ideas for it? And said, once again, here we are in the meeting. Sure, we do. not knowing what in the world we're going to do with it. So I had over the years developed a pretty good relationship with Costco, and actually ultimately ended up doing their work in San Diego for about 5 years. But our first call, they said, if you got any good ideas, we're all ears. And so Kitchell, the developer, and I called Costco, and they said, yeah, we'd be interested in that site. Absolutely. So we started down the road. Costco decided that they were going to put that site on hold, but sure enough, found Target and found a bunch of 20,000, 30,000 foot boxes, and ended up doing about ground up about 750,000 feet up there at 8 Mile and 5. And that took us to the next property, which was about a 30-acre site in a little city called Manteca. Trying to think of where it was. Charter in the 290, I think it was. It's right in front of the Big League Dreams complex there. And that one we did do a Costco. We ended up doing a Costco and a couple of other big boxes. And we actually ended up doing a Home Depot, selling a site to Home Depot. They ultimately did not build it. But and then the third one that we found was in Tracy, California. We found a site for Rayleigh. So in the meantime, I was helping Kitchell be a developer, and I found a couple of sites through this research guy. He said, this would be a really good Hispanic grocery store site. And took it to Kitchell and go, yeah, we're not doing that. It's a 5-property assemblage. It's not big enough. It's not worth it. And said, hey, why don't I do it? So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So, brought in a GC, general contractor partner from San Diego, and took him up there, flew him up there. I was going up there twice a month, at least, just for the brokerage work. And so tied it in and took him down to the site at Charter and Airport, right across from the fairgrounds. And he said, I'm in, let's do it. We reached out to a guy that ran a startup company, grocery company called Rancho San Miguel Markets.
Wow.
And they said, yeah, we're in, build it for us. Again, careful what you wish for. Luckily, Bill, my partner, was very capable, very, very capable as a general contractor. So we did that one. We helped them on another couple of sites. And then things started to get interesting. This was around 2008, 2009, and you know what was happening then. So,
oh boy, yeah.
We all ran for cover. I had 3 sites. I thought I was going to be a developer. So I had 3 sites tied up. I was paying on 2 of them, non-refundable, all the all the environmental, all the you name it. All the consultants were very happy with me because we come up with a credit. We were able to come up with capital to chase more sites. But then, as you know, the Great Recession and everything just stopped. And
yeah,
then you kind of wake up and go, wow, okay, now what?
Good.
So from there, it got that's when my life got pretty interesting. So kind of Northern California kind of stopped, certainly on the development side. The leasing was still kind of finishing up on those projects. So I'd get up there every now and then. And then Kitchell actually kind of pulled out as well. I mean, there wasn't much going on back then.
Right. Everything stopped.
Yeah. So came back down here. Development was probably not an option at that point. Just access to capital was just, and the tenants they really weren't anybody expanding. So there wasn't much to do. Tried to do some consulting work for some of the banks and with a little company that I'd started called Asset Resolution Corp or something like that. So did a little bit of work with the banks, which was workout work where, deeds in lieu or forbearance agreements and things like that. So kind of learned that end of the business. That lasted a couple of 2-3 years, and then went back to brokerage. Thought that's where I was going to finish. Went from a small boutique firm back to Colliers, and ended up getting picked up. I was at Colliers and pretty happy being back there, and got picked up by this group, Marks and Millichap. They had just gone public, and they were kind of growing. They were known as apartment brokers always, as you know, up in Northern California.
Right. Yeah.
Bill and George Marcus and Bill Millichap were very. They had a good model, in fact, very, very good model for apartments, and then they would trade the apartment sellers into net leased investments, and that was the low management and surety of cash flow versus rolling tenants in and out of those apartments. So, but they wanted to grow grocery anchored and multi-tenant retail, and they had a very capable guy who came from On, who was working the whole country. Over 300 retail brokers around the country, and he needed help. So he brought me in to run the Western U.S. So I say that, but then we started chopping up the country a little different. So I ended up actually in Chicago land, in Illinois. I ended up with 3 offices there, 4 offices in Texas, and then we switched those back around, and then everything to the West. So it was Denver, and it was Seattle, and it was Portland, and it was Austin, and I'm bouncing around. But I was even in Albuquerque. We got an office in Albuquerque, so I was I was on the road, but it was actually really fun. It was rewarding, I would say. So you had some very capable, and I'm going to say tenacious brokers that made a lot of phone calls and could use someone with 25 plus years experience in executing retail transactions. So had to teach a few of them that they do need to read the lease that they're selling. Plan in detail. And by the way, don't make a promise that you can't keep, and don't represent something. And I mean, it's, I don't know, but I'll find out is a good response in many instances. That will keep you from having to pay your E&O insurance premiums that are going to end up being much higher. So, but really fun, a good group of guys. And I thought really that would be my last stop. Is the package was a fantastic package. They had got public, and I was participating in the stock ownership, and they paid for pretty much everything, including a very nice salary and bonus. And so fast forward 3-4 years, executive management change, cut costs, all about, cutting costs on with public company bottom line.
Right.
And so next thing, I'm back in brokerage. So I'm back in brokerage, and that's where I'm ending up, and I'm enjoying it. I still love brokerage. I'm 30. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm 40 years plus in the business, and I still get up in the morning. I did it this morning. Just got back in town from Texas, from Dallas, and got up early and got back on the horse, and it's just fun. I'm helping people that have inherited real estate, that are from there. There's a whole generational transfer of wealth going on, and a lot of that involves commercial real estate. And those seem to be my favorite clients, or the clients that I gravitate to, and that I really enjoy helping. I have picked up a really smart young man that has been with me for a year. He's going to get his first listing. He just got engaged. It's just,
oh wow.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. I mean, it just...
Oh yeah.
So...
So explain to me, just out of curiosity, so obviously Marcus is well known for multifamily. I mean, that's sort of their bread and butter. So I am actually not even familiar that they did any retail. So it comes as a bit of a surprise to me. So I assume you're doing family offices, family owned real estate. That's kind of what you like doing best. But is this just straight sales of retail centers, or how is that working?
Yeah, I mean, typically, I mean that's what Marcus and Millichap does. Is it's really investment sales. They don't do. I mean, we need to get authorization. They will allow you to do leasing, but it really needs to be to a degree a means to an end. In other words, if you have a vacant building, you can lease it up and ultimately sell it. That's the way management would sign off on that. But they're very very focused on investment sales and the capital market side, meaning the finance or the mortgage side. I mean, we have a division called Marks Millichap Capital Markets, MMCC, Capital Corp, at Marks Millichap Capital Corp. It is part of the publicly traded entity of Marks and Millichap, and they obviously provide the financing for all these investments, or try to provide the financing. They're intermediaries. They're mortgage brokers.
Right.
We don't originate. We're not lenders. We represent lenders. So it's a third party brokerage, mortgage brokerage piece. But yeah, that's so to your point. I mean, they really have they made their name in apartments, and Bill and George were smart. And they said, well, what do we do with all the money of all these people selling these apartments? And they need to exchange. So the exchange laws would come, it'd come into play there. And so that was really how they built this model. And to this day, are probably the apartment guys are probably actually, you know what? The net leased investment brokers, I just saw the statistics recently, and the net leased brokers are the top performing brokers in Marks and Millichap. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting twist.
Wow. Yeah. So, back in the day, it was the apartment brokers. So the apartment brokers are a close second, I would tell you. And again, you look at overall standings, and then you can look at divisions being office industrial division. A guy in San Francisco runs that, a guy named Mel Pontius. That's office industrial. They do play there, and then retail. And then we actually have a mobile home and affordable housing and seniors, and they kind of gone off into some of those, boutique or the property segments that are not, was well known in other brokerage shops. But Marks Millichap does. I think that's probably the case. I mean, I would tell you that it's not the way I practice. I just never. Burnham, Colliers, Cushman. I mean, we would always spoke. I think the answer is, they believe they know the clients that are the best suited for the properties, and consequently, because they make so many calls and they make so many contacts, they are known. I mean, it's not a huge secret. They are known to be a little bit less inclusive in the brokerage community. Still work your selection, but it's
Well, I think that's mainly kind of on the apartment side. It sounds like from your side, from the retail side, you have to kind of play, all ends. And, if you happen to be able to do a transaction with Marcus on both sides, great. But that's certainly not your goal. It doesn't sound like.
Well, I do my focus is to do what's best for the client. And so that's what I focus on. And I would tell you, the brokers the agents here at Marks Millichap that I come in contact with, they all do the same thing. I mean, I think that culture you're talking about is they've moved away from that considerably. I can't speak to the apartment brokers. I just don't know that I don't do much in the apartment side. I don't know multifamily, to be honest with you. I don't think I've ever sold an apartment complex. So, but I can tell you from a retail and an office industrial, like, mobile home, all those guys usually are very forthcoming. And I mean, if you go out to Cruxy or CoStar and some of the third party, you'll see the third party marketing portals. So you'll see all the Marcus & Millichap properties out there.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably true. I think that was more a 90s, 2000s type attitude that maybe Marcus had, and now the world has changed, and Marcus can't necessarily go down that road as much as they used to, or maybe they don't want to go down that road anymore. They want to open up things a little bit, but that's actually good to hear. So that's great. So it sounds like how many transactions are you doing from the side of a 1031 exchanges coming to you, and you say, okay, hey, look, I've got this place in Texas, that's property in Texas that would be a perfect fit for a 1031 exchange?
Probably less on that and more on the, we try to, a lot of the work is local right now, and some of it is selling in California and migrating the capital, or investing in other states where they can get a higher return, just by virtue of California being a very sought after real estate market. So probably a little bit more on going to the guys that have the out of state properties with a client that we've sold for in California, and saying, hey guys, do you have anything? A little bit more than inbound, where we've got listing, and what we find, what I find in my transaction, in the transactions I've been working on, is it's predominantly local. When I say local, or regional buyers that understand Southern California, that understand some of the complexities of some of the building codes and some of the zoning ordinances and things like that. It's and again, we do, my focus is on retail, either single tenant net lease, or a lot of multi-tenant retail, and again, more regional or local to San Diego County, well, not really much in Orange or LA counties, but maybe some Riverside, not a lot in San Bernardino, and some Imperial counties. So
what would you say your sort of average transaction size is these days?
It's not, it's not real big. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I know that everybody wants to be, 10 million and up. I would say my average transaction size between $4.5 and $5.5 million bucks.
Yeah. But that's still not, $1 million or $2 billion. So that's
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the bigger the deal gets, the more, the other companies kind of come into play, and that becomes a harder transaction to get. So there's probably a lot more profit to be made in the $4 to $6 million range than in the $10 to $20 million range.
It's also, I mean, I've worked with institutional ownerships. You just saw today, ROIC. Stuart Tams is probably going to sell to Blackstone. I know Stuart. I've worked with I've worked with the Kimcos of the world and the ROICs of the world and that kind of thing. I enjoy those. They're talking to those guys. They're very sophisticated, and frankly, a lot of times they're much easier to work with because they know exactly what they want. And they're very sophisticated and experienced. So how much value can I really bring to them? And usually not a whole lot. And there are big, wonderful teams, very, very capable teams, whether it's Newmark or whether it's CBRE or whether it's even there's some Cushman teams, certainly in Arizona. But I'd rather play more on the private client or the high net worth side, and like you said, kind of stay almost below that $10 million range. Just I find I can help. I can apply my experiences and my knowledge to help A great example that the two nurses that inherited 3 properties from their dad had just fought for, I think, 3 years to get through probate because he didn't do the paperwork properly. He didn't know what to do. They owned a gas station in North San Diego County. They didn't want to own a gas station. They were definitely afraid of environmental and all that.
Yeah.
The lease was expiring. They owned a whole home park in San Bernardino, I think it was. There was some vagrancy issue about this they came in, and one's a nurse in Northern California, one's a nurse, and they were just wonderful ladies. They're sisters. Their mom had in bad health. They didn't know what to do. It goes on and on. They still own a couple properties, but we were able to help them transact. We were helping to find some net leased investments in other states, and they have a wonderful cash flow. They used the cash flow to take care of their mother who passed away recently. They used the cash flow to obviously augment their income from their nursing. They're looking forward to retirement. But that's the client I like. I mean, that's I enjoy working with, I should say. And that's the client I can add value to. If I sit down with someone like a Stuart Tams or a Matt Golden or these kinds of guys, I mean, they're so smart. They don't need me.
No, well, I think that's a really good key that brokers that are out there have to find their niche, and their niche is something where they can really add value and actually have interest in doing it. So I think that's a key factor for everybody that is in the brokerage world that can learn that. So I think that's fantastic. So you're running your own consulting firm now also. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's really kind of a offshoot from the brokerage work, and what it does is it gives me the ability to generate revenue or income, but not transact. So what happens is we make a young fellow that works with me. I mean, he's makes 300 calls a week. I mean, he's calling a lot of property owners. And a lot of them are saying, I'm not a seller. I mean, this property's been in the family we got one right now. For 6 months, they weren't a seller. And now all of a sudden they did change their mind and they are a seller. But in the meantime, I explained to them, okay, let us take a look at the financial information. Let us look at the leases. Where are you with the mortgage, with your loans coming to? You can review all that and you can actually consult with them and say, here's what you need to be aware of. You're not collecting the triple nets that are provided for in the lease. You might want to talk to your property manager. We don't do property management. I've got some very good ones that I refer out to in San Diego County. But anyway, here's what you need to do. Go start collecting the property taxes from the tenant, because the tenant signed up for that. And the tenant's not going to come to you and say, oh, hey, I owe you more money than I'm paying you. I want to pay you more. That just doesn't happen. So it's things like that. We just, again, working with Mark Smilchuk Capital Corp. We got more than a few loans coming due. You read about it. You're reading about it all the time in all the different industry publications. A lot of loans coming due at lower rates. So we need to refinance. And underwriting is more difficult now. It's debt coverage ratios or debt yields are those are much more conservative from the lender side. So the consulting is more kind of I don't want to say a means to an end, because a lot of them, they don't. I do a consulting. I maybe charge them a small fee, and it's more, I don't want to say giving back, because I can't work for free. I mean, I would love to, but someday if I can, I will, because I still love working. But charge them an hourly, or charge them a consulting fee, or charge them a leasing commission or something like that, and then just help them along the way. And that, what that does is, for me, it develops a relationship with that client that will help me. That the hope is that someday they'll pick up the phone and they maybe will call me, or maybe they'll call somebody that I partnered with, and they'll say, I remember when Rick did me a favor, and we've got one right now where family owned a property. They live on from the income. It's a Rite Aid. Okay, so Rite Aid goes into bankruptcy. So scared to death. They're scared to death. I mean, this is a very 5-member family. this is a very large rent, $600,000 plus of rent.
Oh, wow.
And,
Wow.
and this is a big part of their
Yeah.
monthly income.
Right.
So they come to me, they're referred to me through a friend, and they say, what do we do? What do we do? Well, we can't not have the income, and we don't want to sell. Okay. So now let's figure out a solution. So good client, the local company that here in Carl's in Solana Beach, and we come up with a creative solution that I call it a master lease, but it was really, so that company came in and leased the entire property, okay, and took on all the risk. Now they paid less rent, but they guaranteed the rent to the family, and then they arbitrage the risk rent from Rite Aid and take the chance on Rite Aid going back, closing this store through bankruptcy and so on and so forth. And then they ultimately will end up, if Rite Aid, there's a buy-sell provision, or there's actually a purchase provision with a certain strike price. But we structured a very creative deal. They're happy as a clam. They now they're very close to what they were getting. This group gets the differential between, this store stayed open through bankruptcy. Rite Aid's out of bankruptcy now. So this store stayed open. So this group benefited because now they absorbed a couple of months of free rent. They absorbed a couple of other costs that were involved in this deal. This group that is now call them the sub landlord, sub landlord.
Yeah.
So here's a creative solution for a family that was really nervous about what might happen with Rite Aid, and they're happy. This other group is happy. They ultimately probably will buy the property, but we've kicked the can down the road for probably another 3 to 5 years. This way, these people, the family can do some estate planning. They can figure out if they want to trade, they want to create a tenants in common and go their separate ways. Well, we've done the best with the situation that we had, and that was a consulting assignment. So that was very simple. Now, again, did I get paid on the consulting side of it? Very little. Okay. The group that we did the work for, that it will ultimately end up with the property, actually paid a fee to Marcus Millichap, a small fee. But what that sets up is when this entity buys the property, this group, we will get paid a fee for that transaction. And this group, if they trade, we will represent them, 3 years from now on the upleg. So
Right.
that's where the consulting comes in. It's just applying. It's just my ability. It's just fun. I mean, I enjoy applying the knowledge and experience, and then obviously the relationships that I've got over the years to try to kind of solve a Rubik's Cube. You never know what you're going to get, and that's what's fun. That's what I still love.
No, that's an incredibly creative approach. I bring in a group and master lease I assume it was a shopping center with a Rite Aid in it.
It's pretty standard.
Yeah. So that's a very good approach. I think that, and I think brokers tend to get kind of stuck in, one way. Okay, we're going to lease it out, or we're going to sell it, or we're going to do different things. I think this business can be very creative if people allow it to be that way.
That's that's my favorite part is getting creative in how you structure deals, and I mean, again, that really is that's what I enjoy, is trying to apply the experience and the knowledge. Oh, I remember when we did, maybe we could do that again. I remember how we, let's not give, rent in the middle of the term. Let's give the rent up front, and then the rent is, the abated rent, free rent to get the tenant in, because if you're going to sell in 2 years, then there's no discussion about a, free rent in the middle of a lease term.
Right.
Little lessons you learn, lessons that you learn along the road that I want to pass along.
No, that's fantastic. So how would people get a hold of you if they want to have a regular transaction or a very creative transaction?
Well, multiple emails, but I mean, obviously Marcus Millichap, there's LinkedIn, then you can see me there and track me down. It's that one's rick.puttkammer at marcusmillichap.com. That's that's the easy one. Well, the long one, that's the long one. And then, CRE Consultative is a Gmail, and that's a little bit more on the consulting side, although I still do, most all that will ultimately involve Marcus & Millichap, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we did a transaction end of last year with a Fortune 50 company, and they said, we are highly confidential. We don't want anybody to know what we're doing. And if you're going to work for us, I've never signed two confidentialities. I signed a confidentiality agreement with a law firm out of DC and a confidentiality agreement with the company itself.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
It's very confidential. And I've never been on a call. This one I can't get too detailed, but I got a call. So this has to do with the startup that I was involved in and doing some consulting for. But anyway, I get a call, and inbound call, and the guy says, this is B. I said, what? Excuse me. He goes, this is B. You've been referred to me, and I'd need to talk to you about some real estate matters. I said, okay, but let me understand, your name is B. He goes, no, I can't tell you my name. I said, just if you need to refer to me, my name is B. And I said, okay. And he goes, I need to interview you, and if you pass the interview, you'll be getting an NDA and the GLA grant from our law firm, and pass the test. And next thing you know, I get an email with a confidentiality agreement. But I've never had a guy introduce himself as B.
Wow.
And then on the Zoom, obviously, no pictures, no nothing. Just which is, again, what's so fun about this business is you never know what you're going to get.
So did you make that transaction, or is it still going on?
We did it. We did it up in Carlsbad. It was an industrial building, which I normally would not do, but this was a fantastic group to work with. They work all over the world. It's incredibly intellectually stimulating, working with technology groups, with the technology that they were going to apply with this building, but also working with teams from all over the world. I mean, they would get on conference calls where they were. Wow. You'd never, where are you? I'm in Australia. Where are you? But it was really, so yeah, we finished that one up, took a year. But again, you just never know. So I created.
But isn't that the truth? Wow. Well, great talking with you, Rick. I look forward to talking to you down the road here sometime and seeing how things are going. And someday maybe you can disclose who that was, but I doubt it.
Probably not. But anyway, there's all sorts of things like that. So no, I appreciate you reaching out. And again, I just love real estate. I mean, my wife doesn't necessarily. She loves real estate. She just doesn't love brokerage all the time. But it's worked out, right? And so I would, anytime, anybody, I love to, if I can help, and just, if nothing else, just talk about real estate, commercial real estate. I have never sold a house other than my own. I never sold a house in my life.
Yeah. And those times when we do sell our own houses, we can't believe the brain damage that we have to go through to make it work. So yeah. In many ways, resident or commercial real estate is so much easier than residential in some ways. So
hats off to some of those residential realtors. I don't know how they do it.
I all the disclosures that would just drive me crazy. So anyway, all right. Well, great to talk.
Well, thanks again, Bruce.
That's a wrap on today's journey through the SF commercial real estate scene. Ready to share your story? Visit sfcommercialconversations.com/guest. Your insights could lead the next conversation.